First, I would like to welcome Mr. James High, Project Manager, to the meeting today. Also, Mr. Ron Dickinson, our Director of Development. Next, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Madam CAO for her tireless work on the terms of reference and producing the agenda. A quick review of today's agenda. We're going to go over the terms of reference for the committee. We're going to get the CASC update on recovery. At our last meeting, one of the members requested the job function of the project manager, so I had it included on the agenda so we all have a copy. Next, we'll move on to status of debris removal, and then committee recommendation from Member McGuire for onward transmittal to council. Now to get on with the formal aspects of the meeting. Before we adopt the agenda, I'm going to go through our nominal roll to see if there's any addition of late items. Just what's not here.
Oh, I just saw two people. Oh, Jessica just arrived, and so did Sheila. So I just admitted them. Sorry, Councillor Hay. Just one moment. There we go.
Sorry for the little delay. Committee member McGuire, committee member Lightfoot are now with the meeting. So
I had one item.
I believe Noni has her hand up.
Yes, I do. You asked for late items for the agenda, Ian?
I'm going through the normal roll again, everybody.
Okay,
Before we cover everybody,
okay.
and you're the lucky lady because you're number one.
Who's number one?
You're number one.
Oh, all right. My thing was I wanted to see Michelle Swan be replaced on the committee. I don't think it's a good idea to just leave a position vacant. I think if someone leaves, they should be replaced, seeing as how there's alternates there. And I did not see that on the agenda.
Okay, would you like me to answer that question for you? If it's in order with the format. The original committee was struck with 10 personnel and they ended up putting 11 on. So when committee member Swan withdrew, it brought it back to the allotted number of 10.
So what does that mean? Why can there not be 11?
Because the committee is struck by council. Council struck the committee to consist of 10 members. That's what the committee has to consist of. Why it got to 11 is beyond my time here.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, member Michelle. Any late items?
I'm not seeing anyone's hand raised.
I thought she was here. Okay. Member Taylor?
Nothing else that's already on the agenda.
Thank you. Member Baxter?
Can you see me?
Member Baxter, can I see you? Yes.
Can
Oh,
you hear
that
me?
was Ollie. If there's time, I'd like to speak towards or talk about the Red Cross supports for renters in the village of Lytton again? But that's all.
Thank you. So can we enter Red Cross support under item 5.3? Member Gessie?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Committee member Hogan with us today? Member Lightfoot?
I see she's here, but
You're not coming
Oh,
in
I
clear
just
at
saw,
all? Oh. You're with us now.
okay. I just thought we had agreed to have a requests and comments agenda item on every meeting. And I don't see that on today's.
I'm sorry, can you say that, pass me again, please?
I don't see that item on today's agenda.
What item is that?
I think at the last meeting, it was called something different, but originally it was called requests and comments from the committee at the end of the meeting.
Didn't remember doing that last meeting, that's why I've been both going through everybody's name at every level we do it, so everybody has a chance to speak. And also at this point, we have a chance to add anything anybody would like to the agenda, and when we get to it, we'll either be able to table to the next meeting if we haven't got the proper information, or we'll be able to discuss it.
I'll pass then.
Thank you. Member McGuire, glad to have you with us.
Thank you, and I don't have anything to add, thanks.
Thank you.
I think member Gessie has her hand raised again.
Member Gessie,
Oh,
No, no, typo.
just for everybody out there, I'm down the end of the table, I don't have my glasses on. So Madam Recovery Managers, let me know when your hands go up, and so if I'm a bit slow getting to you, please forgive that. So, Madam Recovery Manager, anything for the agenda? Late item?
no late items for myself.
Madam CAO is not with us. I have one late item. Correspondence from Ms. Thorpe, and I'd like to put it under 6 and call that correspondence. I'll put it under 6.1. Therefore, we'll change the agenda number to 7. Can I get a motion from the floor to adopt the agenda as amended, please?
I'll do that.
Thank you, Member Harrison. Any questions? Sorry, I better get the motion on the floor first. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes for the December 15th, 2021 Citizens Advisory Select Committee?
It's Sheila. I make that motion. However, it does say on those minutes that Michelle Swan was there, and she in fact was not.
Excellent. Look, you got the motion on the floor now. I open it up for discussion or any changes, okay? And then we can vote, see if we do an amendment to it. Fair enough?
Yeah,
Was there any amendments, additions or deletions to the minutes of December 15th? Outside of the one brought by Member McGuire. So now can I please get a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Is Sheila making that motion or is someone
He made
else?
a motion to get it to adopt, then we put it out to see if there was any change, and if there was changes, now I need a motion to accept it as adopted.
Okay, I'll move that.
Thank you. Next, we're on to number 4, business arising from the minutes. Terms of reference draft revision 2021, put together by Chair Hay. I'll speak to this first. At our last meeting, I put out for any committee members to send any additions or anything they wanted placed into the terms of reference before it was put together. And I gave a date of 27 December. I waited till the 28th, then I contacted Madam CAO and we worked along with Madam Recovery Manager to get this finished. And I bring it to you. It will go to council. One area that we need to discuss, and that is 9C.
Nine C.
That's page 10 of the agenda package.
I don't even know mine. Page 10 of the agenda package, thanks for the help. It said the committee report shall be in writing and follow the format as designated by the village administration. That's in progress right now. And the reason I need that, because I know when I go to my fellow councilors, when I bring points to them, I'm gonna get a question. Why, what, where, when? And I think if it's in writing and it explains exactly what we're looking for and what we're after, then it'll become part of the minutes and be much better to be understood by fellow council members. So that will be going to the council on the 12th at our regular meeting on the 12th of January. Next on to 4.2.
Oh, are we allowed to have any discussion about that or is that just a done deal?
It's a done deal.
Okay,
I'd also like to have some discussion about it, Ian. I
I'm
don't
sorry?
think we've had enough. I don't think that the this group has even been given enough time to read through this and figure it out. I got it Monday morning. I have not had the opportunity to do it. And it was very, very important to me to know the terms of reference before I agreed to come on this committee. And now that they're changing, I think that it's important we have the opportunity to have a little bit of time to read it and understand it.
So I put this out for the 27th. Nobody contacted me at all. So on the 28th, the questions start to arise. And I worked for a week to put this together, and it went out on Friday with the agenda package from Madam CAO, which gave Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
we didn't get that on Friday.
First message I
We got it on Monday.
Yeah,
the
Ian,
first
we
message
didn't
I
get it
got
till
was this morning.
We got it
Ian,
Monday
we
night.
did not get it till Monday. Yeah, so I was gone all day today. I didn't have the time to even look at it yet. it's important to me to know what the terms of reference are before I agree to be on a committee.
Okay. So how do you want to handle this since it's a committee?
Oh, can I speak? Can I speak? Can you hear me? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So I know that the call went out on the 27th or whatever date that was that you said. However, there's been something come up for me since then in talking with members of the public and the community that I feel like needs to be addressed on these terms of reference. So I, for one, I haven't had a chance to talk to any of my other council member or committee members, pardon me, committee members. And I feel very out of the loop over here in Alberta. And I would like some sort of venue where we could have a chat as members of this committee and discuss these terms of reference before they are in stone, so to speak. So that's what I'm going to say, because there is something I want addressed in here.
Thank you very much. So, seeing as I'm being outvoted all over the place, we'll strike a subcommittee to run into this and contact the rest of the committee members. Do I have a volunteer for the chair?
You're asking for a volunteer to chair a subcommittee to go over the terms of reference and come back to you before when with the revised or concerns?
Come back to the next committee meeting.
Okay. Is there anyone who wants to chair that?
You?
I don't mind. If you need a chair, I can do that.
Is that a your volunteer?
I'll wait to hear what Jesua has to say first.
Yes, Joshua has
I
her hand
have
up.
a concern. I have a concern with this terms of reference or whatever. It just seems to be formalizing something into what would be considered a regular council meeting, whereas committees generally promote conversation and discussion so that all members can contribute to a good discussion. And it just seems like it's getting more complicated in process than we're spending time on the things that need to be addressed. So the other terms of reference were fine with me, but I have an issue. I have an issue too. I'm not sure it's the same one that Ollie has, but there's one section there that and it's the communication section that I have a real issue with. I don't feel that we're working shoulder to shoulder. It seems to be a top-down kind of structure, and I have to admit, and I'm just being honest at this point, I'm really fighting the urge to walk away because I don't want to get bogged down in process and whatever. We have a staff person that's taking minutes. We have recorded minutes. I think we need to keep it simple. So that's all I have to say. And Noni, if you want to chair something to bring us together on this, I will gladly participate.
Me too.
So where are you at, Ian?
Are you chairing the subcommittee to bring the report back to this committee at the, I believe, the 19th of January meeting?
Okay, as long as I know what the issue is, I think I've got it clear in my mind.
Super. The only reason I went ahead and put these together is the first meeting when I first sat at the table with you people was, well, I don't know what direction we're going in. I'm not sure. I don't want to waste my time. So I try to get down and give some direction. Okay, because if not, we will be wandering. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Are you doing any?
I can, yeah.
I'm gonna turn it over now to Madam Recovery Manager for her update on the recovery.
All right. Hello, everyone. Very good to be here in Kamloops finally, and very happy to be here with Mayor Polderman and Councillor Hay. So thank you so much for the warm welcome. With respect, I know there was a question that came up at the last meeting with respect to a CAC representative on the Lytton interagency update, which is held bi-weekly on Fridays. I'm absolutely happy to have such representation. I think if I can give a little bit of insight on the purpose of the interagency update, it's very much operationally focused. So for example, BC Hydro might be talking to TELUS about moving some of the poles or something like that on a particular street, or there's an update from Canada Post, which I know that a lot of folks are anxious to have updates on. So I'm absolutely, I think having that update or having that representation would be helpful for the CAC members. I would caution that the CAC should be there in an observer capacity. I don't think that there would be much value to be had from having the opportunity to speak at these meetings. Alternatively, I'm happy to pass along the minutes of the interagency update to the committee, to the CAC committee for their review, and have that as an addition to the agenda item. So I'll leave it with you, whether you as a committee would like to appoint a representative to sit as an observer at the interagency update. It's usually about a 2-hour meeting, again, held bi-weekly on Fridays. The first meeting of this year will be held this Friday from 10 a.m. to around noon. So I'll leave that with you if you would like to, like I say, either take that back and appoint a representative to sit as an observer, or if you would prefer just to review the minutes of the meetings as an addition to your agenda package.
So I'm going to go through the normal roll, and if there's any questions, and also at the time when I go through, would you please let us know whether you want to appoint an observer or we just want to get the minutes. Member McGuire.
Sorry, I was having a big drink. I would like to get the minutes.
Member McCann. Member McCann. I'll come back to it.
Oh,
I lost myself for a minute.
Okay.
I'm happy with the minutes, but I'm wondering when would the minutes come? I'm not sure. I want them as, I'm so fussy, sorry. Like the minutes would be nice to have, but rather soon after the meeting, rather than just attached to all the stuff that comes with this committee. But does that make it too awkward and difficult? I can understand how that could be an issue.
I don't think it would make it awkward or difficult. I think that because I am chairing the meeting, I don't take the minutes. So we generally try to get the minutes out within around 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to, add them onto the following or onto the next agenda for the CAC meeting, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, if it's an attachment to the CAC meeting, then to me, that's another big document that's gonna come at the same time as a whole bunch of other stuff. And this sounds like if it's a 2-hour meeting, it's gonna be a pretty weighty little piece of minutes, I'm guessing. So
Sure.
for me personally, I'd rather get that as a separate email that comes on its own to this committee whenever everybody else gets it, like not necessarily attached to everything else that's coming this way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. So that's just my preference. If it's too awkward, then I understand, but I'm happy to see the minutes.
Member Michelle,
I would be good with just getting the minutes, and the same as Noni, I would prefer them in a separate package if possible. Thanks.
Member Taylor,
I would echo the same thing as what Noni and Liz have said about the minutes.
thank you. Member Baxter,
Yeah, I would like to receive the minutes as well, and whatever's the easiest way to do so is fine with me.
thank you. Member Geffey,
I'd like the minutes also. I don't see how a member could actually give out the information in person, so seeing the minutes would be better. Thank you.
thank you. Member Harrison,
Yeah, I would just like minutes. However they come.
thank you. Member Hogan,
I'm good either way. I have lots of papers already, so
thanks, Johnny. Excuse me, member Lightfoot,
Minutes in a separate email would be my preference.
member McGuire,
I started this off. We already did me.
I didn't hear you. Can you say it again, please?
Yeah, I started this conversation off. Have already been to me.
I heard, Member McGuire, I heard you started this meeting or this topic off, and I missed the last part.
you already
Just
heard.
that I was the
from-
first one asked. So I've already heard, you've already heard from me.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, I don't have you checked off my list. So what we've got is everybody on the committee would like to have a copy of the minutes. So what I'll do is I'll ask Madam Recovery Manager to get it out as soon as she gets the copy, because she has no control over them or she doesn't write them. And I gave her a list of all our people. And then what we will do is we will get any queries or questions on the next agenda after that meeting that you want to discuss at the next meeting. Does that meet with everybody's approval? I'll go down the list again. Member McCann,
All good, thank you.
thank you. Member Michelle,
Yep, that's good.
thank you. Member Taylor,
No problems here.
thank you. Member Baxter,
Yep, that's good.
member Geffey,
Yep, 10-4.
member Harrison,
Yeah, 10-4 here too.
member Hogan,
Good to go.
Member Lightfoot.
Check.
And Sheila, I won't leave you out. Member McGuire.
Yeah, that's all good for me, thanks.
Super duper. You okay with that? So the minutes will reflect that. And please understand this, as I said before, Madam Recovery Manager has no control over when she gets those minutes. So now we're going to move on to number 4.3, was just an information to put on for one of our members who wanted to know that. So it's just general information for everybody. And we're going to move on now to number 5, new business. And I'd like to get Mr. James High to take the floor and give us a little spiel on status of debris removal. And I'll make sure everybody does have a chance for questions at the end of his in-depth talk to us.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Counselor. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I don't think I've met most of you, some of you perhaps. My name is James High. I've been brought in to help as the project manager for the Village of Lytton. Really supporting Allison and the recovery team by taking discrete projects off their hands and executing them. And so really right now, starting with trying to identify the scope, schedule, budget of the debris cleanup or remediation. Also the water systems in the village, trying to understand the level of destruction on the water system, helping the public works team get key elements out, such as chlorine and snow clearing and other items, so that they can actually put contracts in place moving forward. So really right now I would say I've been in an information gathering phase for the last few weeks, interviewing many of the primary stakeholders who have an action item within the recovery and the water systems and whatnot, really trying to fill myself in on what's been happening for the last 6 months, what is or was the plan forward, and how I could sort of jump into that and start to put some structure around it. So that went really well. Right now, I'm really trying to put some schedules around all of the activities that are occurring with all the individual groups. What I'd like to be able to provide to yourselves and the community and others is what are the schedules looking like? What are the milestones for different elements of the project? And I'll just focus on recovery, the cleanup right now for everybody. There's a lot of other things going on, obviously. So the example for me is really wrap my head around what the scope is. What are we doing? What are we not doing? Obviously, who's funding it? What authorities do we have to make it happen? You all know that there's insurers on site. There's the Red Cross has made some commitments. The province has some commitments. So really trying to understand what those commitments are and bring them all under one umbrella. Once that's all in place, and I think some of you are aware, I did launch a series of project team meetings, started right before the holidays, really just a touch point with all of those stakeholders. On the cleanup, for example, there's something like 40 stakeholders that I'd identified that were at the table for that one. There's probably more that I've missed so far that'll start to come into the project as we get it moving and they realize there's something occurring. And then I put a schedule together that identifies all the tasks and how long each task takes. So for example, the Heritage Committee is looking at the archaeological and heritage branch requirements for any in-ground work. So before we do any remediation or any pulling out of foundations or services on the site, we've got a provincial regulation through the heritage branch that we need to adhere to. So once I understand how long it's going to take them to provide us with direction, I can create that as a milestone, for example, that will allow us or trigger other activities to start occurring from there. Similar to the Ministry of Environment, Contaminated Sites Branch, Hazardous Waste Group. We're also looking at different landfill opportunities about where we might be able to move some of these materials. What are the constraints on trucking? How far away do we need to haul these materials? Specifically, a lot of it, the first level of contamination is asbestos on the ground in Lytton. So what I really hope to do is paint a picture for everybody that has a number of communication styles, both in written minutes, in a schedule that's visual, that shows all the different tasks that need to be done and how long they're going to take. Ideally, when all of that comes together, it can be presented in a monthly format for everybody in the community and all the different utilities and stakeholders, so they can start to plan their lives or their actions or their activities around what the village is doing. Because this is a village-led response. It has had some challenges from capacity and other reasons, but I think the village is going to take control of the project and all the projects and start putting a structure around them. And then the idea is to build a team around that, generally of consultants and contractors and people who have the resources to help support us to move those activities forward. So what I'm not is a consultant who does design. I don't do construction. I'm not somebody who carries a fleet of tradespeople with me. Really, I'm trying to gather information, put it in a format that supports the activities, and then be able to bring that out to the community in a logical, realizable sequence so that the actions are actually reflective of the amount of effort that it takes to do it. What I don't want, and what I've learned over the years, is communicating out wrong milestones to the community just creates distrust, disinformation. It gets people stressed out about when they can start doing the things that they need to do to get their lives back in order. So that's kind of what it is. I mean, it's project management, it's scope, schedule, and budget. It's simple stuff, but it's complex at the same time. And so my next tasks are trying to put out some RFPs for a professional consultant, a qualified professional would be the designation to represent Lytton, similar to the way the insurers are represented right now, so that we can do a work plan around the properties that are not being resolved through the insurance, and hopefully leverage what they're doing and what Lytton First Nation and others are doing as much as possible. But we do need to get qualified people on our team now and start developing plans around all the different parts of the project. I'd also like to put out an RFP to get a contracting support. So a contracting company that can come in and support your public works department, who can go in and resolve issues with the water system, who can look at all of the different factors from an operational point of view. So consultant and contractor, I think those are the two first things that I'd like to get hired and in place for Lytton, probably on a long-term standing offer type basis, so that we can just call on them with some terms that would hold them to be able to respond within an hour or 2 hours of something occurring in the community, say a water break or a massive snowfall, or any other thing that would hinder the community from getting back to business. Because right now, Lytton has no resources to respond to anything that occurs either environmentally or man-made in the community. Those procurements aren't quick. They're public procurement, so it means putting together a procurement document, putting it out to market, getting people to respond with pricing, and then evaluating them and awarding it. Things like that. And what I'd like to be able to do is have a number of different working groups feed into the project. So I would imagine this as a community group would be a major contributor to what the plan needs to be, what the scope is. I would see that the Ministry of Environment would be another working group. The Heritage Branch would be another working group. The funding agencies would be another working group. And they would all feed into the major plan so that we know what we can and can't do, how long it would take to do certain elements of it, what our constraints are. And as we get that group together, similar to all these other groups you guys are part of and what council and others are trying to do, we start to paint a picture of the reality of each individual project. And as we build those projects out, then we can start layering in, community infrastructure. When does the water system and fire system start to be reactivated? When do the first building permits theoretically are able to be issued out? And that would, feed into the building department so they know when they can expect to start seeing people come to the table. You guys and the community can start to understand when they need to hire their own contractors to come in and put foundations in the ground, for example. So it starts out small, and then the plan gets larger and larger and larger as it snowballs. I know that's a lot, sorry guys, but I just kind of want to paint a broad picture of what it is and how to get it moving.
Thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedule, Mr. Hyder, to look after us. Much appreciated. So I'm gonna go down through our normal roll again, and if you have any questions, if you happen to be stumped and don't have your mind blank, just ask me and I'll put you at the end of the list. We're starting off. Member Michelle,
Can you come back to me, please?
sure will.
Thank you.
I'm gonna see if she will come back. Mr. Taylor,
Can you come back to me too? I'm sorry.
we'll go through the list once only, okay? The second time after that will be done.
That's understandable, but I'm usually never this
I
close to
know,
the top, so I
I'm
wasn't
just giving you a
prepared.
hard time. Member Baxter,
I'll pass, thank you.
thank you. Member Getty,
No questions at this moment.
thank you. Member Harrison,
So I just have a question, but I don't know whether you're at this point or not. You mentioned pulling out foundations. What do you do with that cement? You were saying that. So I guess I'm curious about how stuff is getting transported out of Lytton right now. And how feasible is that going to be in the future with the highway out of commission?
Very good question. Something that I've asked as well. I think, there's multiple routes to get out of town, obviously, when the highways are in place and accessible. So we are, the TNRD has actually hired some solid waste consultants early on, not just for Lytton, but for also other fire affected areas across the interior. They have been looking at transportation, and they are bringing back opportunities or suggestions to the project team around that. We've identified CN Rail as a potential, and I know Councillor Robertson with LFN has started dialogue around some sort of a transload facility. There is one in Ashcroft. We do know that there are private facilities in the interior as well as Alberta and the United States that will take some of the contaminants that we've identified in Lytton. Some of them are hazardous. Some of them are just contaminants. So it's not very feasible. Truthfully, it's expensive to haul things, and it's all going to be expensive, but it does have to be removed and it does have to be relocated out of town. So, the funding partners have to understand that, and that's part of project management is to uncover enough of these questions and put budgets against them, so that when we go to the funders and ask for them to support the project, that they have a holistic view of how much it's going to cost. So it's not piecemeal that we're saying, oh, now we want this much, and in 4 months we want this much. We really want to give them a view of the challenges with this project. So there is trucking, there is railway, there are other ways to get it out of town, and we are looking at that through a working group. They're going to bring back some suggestions and some cost points, and we're going to go from there. There's also the opportunity for concrete and rubble foundations potentially to be cleaned and crushed on site and used, repurposed, which is pretty common in the construction industry, especially in remote locations where it's expensive to haul in aggregates. So that's an opportunity for some of the materials possibly not have to leave town and keep the cost down, and also repurpose them for back into the construction and keep construction costs down. So these were things that have already been started before I arrived that I'm learning from these groups. But there's certainly not a 100% plan in place for which solution we're going to take. It might even be a combination of them.
Thank you. I'll be waiting with bated breath.
Member Harrison, does that satisfy your question, or is there anything else you need?
No, that completely satisfied my question for now. I understand there will be a time frame on that. So, as far as getting the highway fixed, that's sort of out of your control. So I'll be interested to hear about rail would be a great one. So I'll be waiting to hear on those points that you've made. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Hogan?
Hi there, just curious about the stakeholders you mentioned talking to, who they would be, and then also with you mentioned CN Rail, but CP Rail is actually the one that has the siding before at Aspen Planers down at the mill site. And we've talked about that before in some other meetings that I was in, and Jason Robertson was also involved in those meetings.
I wasn't aware of that, John. That is important to understand for sure. I think whatever we do needs to be an investment for the community and be practical for the future. And if it can lead to further economic opportunities for Aspen Planers, even it's all good conversation. So I'll talk to Jason about that. He is on the project team and obviously integral to the community. So.
Member Hogan, does that answer your question?
Sure, but James mentioned he talked to some stakeholders. So are those the people that are actually going to be doing the work, or is it local people that he spoke to?
It's a very good question. I don't think my job as a project manager is to do the community consultation. What I want is for clear direction from recovery, from council about the vision, and then I execute the plan. So no, not really, John. It's not community members. It's the people who have the ability to influence the actions on the project. So the ministry individuals, the insurers, the contractors, the consultants, I do think and one of the things I do want to put in place is a governance structure around it that has a steering committee that does receive direction from council. And so this committee would influence council in that regard and speak for the community, and then that would come back into the project. That steering committee really would be an approving body and a visionary body that would provide overall guidance. And then following that, we would have an integrated project team, which would be more about the people who are doing the activities to get the work done. And that's the bulk of the project team. Those are the doers. And so those are the people that I would generally work in partnership with and put some structure for them. And then there's the working groups that feed into that so that we can get advice from them about the activities and how best to action items.
Okay, that makes the word stakeholder mean more to me then. Thanks.
All right. Member Hogan, are you okay now?
I was always okay.
I know you are, Johnny. Member Lightfoot?
Thank you for your presentation, and it's good to see a project manager that's talking about written minutes and monthly shared logical and realizable goals. And I know you're probably reluctant to make an estimate, but ideally, if things went pretty good, the occasional hiccup or whatever, can you give optimistic date on at which time you think the site will be cleaned up? And secondary to that, can I assume that no construction will happen until the entire site is cleaned up, or will it be staged?
I'll address the first question. I don't mind chatting about my gut feeling or some of the things based on experience. No, I think that's why we're here. But I do, caution that there's a lot of moving pieces that I'm not aware of yet that are going to change my opinion as we go, and I'll be open and honest with you guys as we go. First off, I don't think anybody's going to practically get in and do anything until the snow's off the ground. The first move is to remediate the debris on the surface, which is the asbestos. It really has to be bagged by people in suits and breathing apparatus, and that has to be hauled off site. I don't practically see how anybody can do that with a foot or 18 inches of snow on top of it. So If we have a freeze thaw cycle and the snow leaves earlier, maybe, but I don't think we're going to materially be doing anything on the ground in a large scale until the snow's gone. So that's my gut. It's probably not what people want to hear, but from a practicality and an operational point of view, that's really how the world works. So I don't know how long that will take to get people in suits to bag that with shovels or whatever they choose to do to get the hazardous side of asbestos off the ground. It's probably a pretty big task. It probably means how many people do we get to do it and how much money are we willing to throw at it in a short amount of time. And I don't know that either. But again, just looking at it from a duration point of view, let's say that takes 3 months alone. We're not constrained by the heritage branch for that work because there's non-artifacts on the surface. It's already been given a buy for that. So we're not constrained. Once that's done, we are constrained by the heritage branch for anything underground. So we do need to get a permitting in place, which I know they're working on, and they've done an amazing job of putting a committee together and putting those items in place. And I think they're driving that forward quite quickly, but that's a constraint. We wouldn't be able to start the other work until that permit's in place and approved. I think we need to take the heritage aspect extremely seriously, and I don't think that's necessarily been looked at from the folks who showed up in the middle of the emergency. And so we really need to wrap our heads around what does that mean, and if there are significant discoveries while we're working, what's the process for recovering artifacts? It's not just a matter of having somebody on site to watch what gets dug. It's what do we do afterwards, and what does that mean to the community? So I think that's a really big, interesting conversation. I read an article from, I think it was Surrey recently, where one of their water lines, they dug into a historical site. There were 5 Indigenous communities that were consulted and affected by it. It delayed the project by a numerous amount of months, almost $1 million additional costs in working through that. The communities, I believe, chose to leave the artifacts in the ground. Construction proceeded. It's those kinds of processes that we don't have in place for ourselves yet, that hasn't been thought about yet, that I think we need to map out and understand. So, we do have professionals at the table thinking about it. That's another constraint that comes up to me, that I don't know how long that will take, or if a major discovery would slow the project or stop it, or a segment of it at any point in time. And then, when the insurers look at the ground, they're looking at in each individual project site, like the residences, what they're insured to cover. The village has to look at the entire landscape. So I think it's a bit bigger than just we're cleaning up a site to the lot line. I think we're cleaning up the entire environment around Lytton so that people can return safely. The second, so no, those are just my guts. Those are the things that I want to map out to be able to put on a schedule, to put some numbers around so we can realistically look at it. I'm not sure that we would want people, on your second point, building in the community until it's safe for all. There's going to be a lot of pressure. There already is, believe me. CP Rail, TELUS, the utilities, they all want to get in and get back to business. But right now, the landscape under WorkSafe BC is covered in asbestos. So they certainly can't go onto site without wearing full hazmat suits. I don't think a lot of the folks that want to return quickly understand what's actually occurred in Lytton. I think there's a little bit of education out to the broader world still, and maybe even in the community, about the level of contamination that occurred from the fire. So we need a lot of testing to understand what that is. And I'm certainly going to fight that we don't rush this. And I don't mean to minimize getting people back. I mean, we don't do it wrong, and we don't put the burden back onto the homeowners at the end of the day because the project team missed something on the first pass because they were hurrying for an external body that wanted to get in and do something. So I'm not sure if people will have phased approaches to building, or if it'll be the gates will be closed until they're open for everyone. I'm not sure on that one either.
Well, it is hard for many of us to understand that it is so toxic, given that we see other communities and houses from time to time burn, and it seems people can get in and deal with it. And I know the elementary school was an asbestos haven, and that was why no one really wanted that building. The old hospital was remediated last year and taken down. That asbestos was gone before the fire. But in small frame households, I mean, you're the expert, of course, but it is concerning because many of us in early July had hoped that the majority of the debris removal would have been done by the end of November. And now we're looking at another 3 or 4 months, and people's insurance, and I know insurance companies have been pushing the village to allow debris removal. And businesses, it's not only homes, it's the businesses. We're marginal at best before, and delay in coming back makes it even harder for them. So I've got just one more question, and then I'll pass it on. So we have businesses, we have households, but we have village public works, village infrastructure. So if we're talking about the sewer, water, power, utilities, that is all on public land. That's not private land, correct? So what differences in approach are there, or are there any, between private and public?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the project for remediation won't discern between private and public. It all needs to be cleaned up, and it all needs to be taken away. Utilities, absolutely. And that is interesting because that's part of it. If we're in the ground removing foundations, we need to figure out what are we doing with the water system at the same time, because homeowners are going to have to come back and build. Are we removing what's there back to the lot line, or how are we capping it? I really want to think about how we're protecting the homeowner when they come back. What do the services look like? It's not just we're cleaning up the site and leaving it underground. We need to make it developable. I think we need to advocate for the project to take care of the entire town site and get the services back and ready and in good shape, so that when you invest and put your home back up, the services are there to support you. So they kind of come part and parcel. It's public services. Some of it extend into private property. Some of it are on public land. And then the utilities obviously are going to also come in, and we're meeting with TELUS, our BC Hydro, on Friday about how they're going to replace the utilities. And there is a lot of talk about them coming into the community underground. So again, if that's happening, that is also a phase of the project that we have to put into this project schedule that, again, could foreseeably delay the ability to start building back on lots. So I guess it all comes down to, there's a lot of moving pieces still. If it were in my gut and I were a homeowner in Lytton, and I'm not, and I totally appreciate that, I don't think I would be planning to build back in 2022. I would be starting to look to the spring of 2023 at the earliest before I started looking to develop or design. I think that the insurers will probably move a little bit faster because they have the money and they can move on some of the insured parcels quicker. I think because I know that the remediation is going to take a fair amount of time to get in and start doing construction in the middle of winter for a foundation of a house, it doesn't make sense for a homeowner because it costs a lot more money. And there's a lot of inefficiency in doing winter construction. So.
Yep, we missed that window of opportunity.
I think it's been missed. Yep. And I think we have to now be practical. And actually, I think we need to take the opportunity to do some more planning, truthfully, over the next few months while we are not in an operational mode and rushing, and get it right, figure out all the moving pieces, get the schedule developed, make sure we all kind of buy into it. And yeah, it's not going to be easy to get consensus. But make sure we all know what it looks like, at least, whether we like it or not, and then drive that forward and don't miss the next window.
But excellent advice. It needs a good plan and forward motion with increased speed.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. I pass on.
Are you okay?
I'm always okay.
I know that.
but I am finished questioning this person.
The
Thank
questions
you
have
very
been
much.
answered?
Yes, well,
Thank
most
you.
of them. There'll be more.
Member McGuire?
Thanks. John and Joshua asked my questions, so I have the answers. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Michelle?
Hi. Okay, so my question, if anyone knows this answer, is about the cost of the debris removal. So in speaking to my insurance adjuster, I believe it was back in the middle of November, she explained that because of the archaeological or heritage, whatever it's called, debris removal will be done in 3 steps. So the surface, or like the items that are on the ground, a little bit of the surface ground, and then there's going to be the below ground. So I've got a set amount that I have in my insurance policy that will cover debris removal. Is the province or the village or whoever, is somebody going to be covering the costs that are over and above what I have allocated in my package?
I believe that there is a program and discussions right now between the province and the federal government around covering people whose insurance may not take them all the way through to the end of the remediation. I think that there's a political will to have that occur. Obviously, I don't know that that's been sorted out or that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, but from what I understand, that there is movement underway to make sure that the entire site and all the properties are remediated to a point that Lytton can rebuild. So I know that leaves a lot of uncertainty and what that is. And of course, I don't speak for, the broader political world, but what I understand is that there is a commitment for Lytton to be remediated and the hazards to be removed so that people can rebuild.
Okay, and then just one other thing, is there going to be help for us that are insured that only have a 24-month time frame in getting our insurance extended? I know there is a process, but it's like filing paperwork with the Supreme Court or something. Like, will there be somebody that will come in and help us do that? Because it's obviously going to take longer than June 2023 to get our building done. Thanks.
Allison may be a better person to speak to that from the Canadian Red Cross point of view. She understands and has been working with them quite a while. What I know is that the Insurance Bureau of Canada is a stakeholder in the project team meetings that we are doing, and they are going to also have the schedule that we produce that outlines the durations and when they can get back to the table. So I would expect that the insurance industry will be equipped and understand that those durations may not be suitable for Lytton, and will likely start to take internal comments about how do they protect the homeowners during that time lag. But I'll let Allison talk to the Red Cross's component.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Hay, is that okay? Sorry about that. So yes, I have been speaking with the Red Cross. They, along with the Insurance Bureau of Canada, I know that there is some appetite on the part of IBC to extend some of those timelines. We haven't gone into specifics yet, but in terms of Red Cross, I do understand that they are supporting a big chunk of the debris removal piece for properties that did not have insurance or properties which may have been underinsured. So I hope that helps.
Member Michelle, maybe what I suggest we do, and I think Mr. High for doing that. I'm sorry you got out of your realm of expertise in that. I think what we'll probably do is that that recovery manager and I will get our heads together. We'll bring a speaker in next week who is more into the legality and the insurance aspect of it. And that way we'll be able to, go to the bank with what they say, not something that's, I appreciate them answering the question for you, but We need somebody in the realm of expertise, so he doesn't get in trouble. So we'll get that
Appreciate
down.
that.
And also, if remind us, email me and say, have you got that in the agenda yet? Okay, and we'll get somebody here to speak on it. And last but not least, Member Taylor.
No questions. Mine have all been answered in the end.
Super duper. Mr. High, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're.
Hold on.
Member McKen.
Who did?
Sorry,
Member
I'm
McKen.
still here. I haven't left.
Did I get you yet?
No, you missed me, but that's all right. I'm still gonna take my turn though.
Member McCann, you have the
Yeah,
floor.
thanks. Thank you for lending me the floor. Hi, James. I just wanted to, when you were going through your list of things that you're doing and groups that you're working with, something that someone said earlier, not in this committee, but popped up, and that was hiring public works people now to be involved right from the beginning, so that the long-term picture, they're going to be here for a while. They're going to be here for a while to help with the reconstruction, with the recovery, with the water system forever and ever and ever. And if they're getting hired now, holy smokes, you got all that time and all these cool people that you're bringing in that are going to train somebody right now to last the next 5 years to get through all this mess. And I didn't hear you say that. I didn't hear you say anything about hiring public works. Like Lytton has a public works department, or they did. And where are they? Like the people that are looking for snow removal are really wondering, I'm sure, where they are. But these are, like you mentioned that, but I didn't hear you say how that part of the process was in your picture. Can you help me there?
Well, I'm actually not leading the administrative side of Lytton or the human resourcing side. So no, I can't, Noni. I can talk to the projects, but perhaps Councillor Hay can speak to that.
Really? So part of your job has nothing to do with local people?
It does, but I don't resource the administration or the administrative planning of the village.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that. Thanks.
I see that Ron Matuzzi has his hand raised.
Thank you. Maybe I could help out for James here. Yeah, no, James's project is to organize the projects and get in the recovery. In terms of the long-term future and having staff on board, and again, I'm not speaking for the administration any longer. I'm just here to help. But I know that a budget will be coming forward as well as a financial statement. At that point in time, council will have to make a decision as to the staff that'll be on board. Hiring village staff isn't part of recovery. It's part of the normal budget of the village. And so if additional staff are hired today, they'll have to be paid for through taxation. And so that'll really ultimately be up to council when they see both the financial situation in the village and the budget for next year, which should be coming forward fairly soon. I know that Terry is working on it, in my understanding. So again, James wouldn't know anything about hiring local public works people.
Thank you. Member McCann, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for interrupting, because I forgot to ask my questions. Now it got me back on the table. I got a couple of questions if I can, and one's on the what I call the archaeological permits, and I'm not sure if you can answer them. If you can't, please just let me know that. A basement goes 7 feet into the ground. We're going to be digging under the basement. What about the front lawn? Are we going down now 16 and 18 feet, or how is it done? I used to get involved with the archaeological stuff when I was CAO here, but it used to be on barren land, government land, when we're putting stuff in. What we're dealing with now, if you can see me, is uneven ground. Lawn, basement, pipes. And I'm just not sure what the overall thing's going to be. Are we going to be going down a ton of feet? Or are we just going to be going down 80 inches like this? Because, sorry, some of the the basements were put in here, you know, I call them recent history. So there might be stuff under, I don't know if you can answer that, and please let me know. If you can't, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, I think that's fine. What I understand the original plan and one of the members had mentioned a three-phased approach. What the strategy or tactic was originally was to come in and remove the surface debris and then essentially take 2 to 4 inches of the soil to capture any related contamination on the surface holistically, widespread. Take a skim of surface debris off of the surface all the way throughout the town site, and then come back and test it broadly to see if they had captured all the contamination and if there was anything remaining. If the test came back as we needed to remediate further, we would chase it further into the ground. The only other way is to start bringing in boreholes and testing deeper sites to find it. So this was the insurance industry's strategy. It seems like a fairly practical approach to dealing with it in the first instance. So yeah, we'll probably be chasing it to the topography as it sits while we take a skim off of the surface and then do the testing to make sure that there's no contamination left in the ground.
Good, thank you very much, appreciate that. And I got one more for you, which is my one unfair question of the day. And this is unfair to you. This is a question I get to me a lot as a counselor. What's been the main holdup and nothing's been done so far that you see?
I think no, it's an emergency. I mean, I spent 15 years with wildfire before I became a project manager for the last 10. Emergencies are crazy. You know, everybody is kind of just doing their thing. I think the village of Lytton lost their administration and leadership. I think there was a lot of goodwill and people trying to do tasks, but there wasn't a lot of structure around it. And when you don't have a plan that you're following, it's hard to hit milestones and hard to keep your foot on the gas pedal. I'm saying that as an outsider. I mean, I've only been part of the project for the last 4 months, but believe me, as a local in Lillooet and invested interest in Lytton and the entire valley, I've been following the Lytton story. I've been watching. I certainly wanted to just drive in my truck and help, as I did through the entire interior when it was burning. I think it was just people were trying to do their best and that wasn't good enough. I know it's not a cop-out. It's not saying sorry for everybody, but you know, Councillor, hey, we're here today. There has been a lot of hard work done, believe me. I know how much there is, and there's still a lot to do. We missed that window. We got a lot of snow all of a sudden, and we lost some good people along the way. So I think we've got a team back together. We're starting to redevelop a plan based on the situation that we have in front of us now. And hopefully with this group and others, we don't stumble and miss the next window.
Super, thanks very much, appreciate it. So thank you again for taking your time to come here today and supply people with a lot of information that's probably been lacking with a lot of us for quite a while. Next, we're moving on to 5.2, recommendation to council rebuilding bylaw. I received this from one of our members, and what I did is I broke it down into 3 individuals. That way, when the committee chair, which would be me, when we take it to council, if council doesn't like one, then the other 2 probably can get through. If we put them all together, one doesn't make it, the rest don't. And I appreciate the member that sent these. And I will quote her, this is to get the table open for talk. So the first one we have, that the Citizens Advisory Select Committee recommends to council that building bylaw 750 be amended to remove any reference to step code 5 and replace with reference to step code 3. I'm going to go down through the list again. And if we have any real, let me see, problems here, please let me know, because we have Mr. Dickinson here who will be able to help answer any of your questions. And we'll be sticking him probably in the hot seat at the end of, when we do all 3 of these, or we can do it at the end of each one. So I'm going to start with Mr. Taylor.
No objections. I think it's good.
Thank you. Member Baxter,
No objections.
member Getzey,
I just have one query, which is about step code 4. So if step code 3 is going to be, you'll be transitioning into step code 4 in, what is it, 2025? Wouldn't it make sense to have the higher step code as a milestone for the new bylaw, or is that just too difficult to conceive of? Like, if that makes sense.
what? Member Getzey, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna refer that to Mr. Dickinson to answer your question, and it's way beyond my capability. Mr. Dickinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and make it just a quick answer. The simple answer is step 3 is very easily attainable. It's practically, in essence, the building code of the day. So the materials, the equipment, the expertise is all on the ground and in the financial realm of what's expected. As soon as you get to 4 or 5, you start to get into areas where the costs escalate. And the gain is, well, the gain is something that people need to assess. My opinion is that the gain is minimal for especially if you consider it against the financial costs. So really, you're talking about energy efficiency here, and it's you get a pretty high level of energy efficiency out of step 3. So that's the short story. There's more to it than that, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Right, so we would be within a logical place to accept that number. Thank you.
Member Getzey, you're for?
I'm sorry?
Are you for?
For the step code 4?
No, are you voting for that we replace step code 5 with step code 3?
Yes, I'm for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Harrison? I'll put member Harrison on hold. Member McGuire?
Well, I think we know what I think because I put this forward. So yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to keep score. I'll go back then. Member Harrison?
I'm for step 3.
Thank you. Member Hogan?
You can come back to me.
Will do, Johnny. Member Lightfoot?
I'm in agreement.
Member McCann?
Fine with me, thank you.
Member Michelle?
I'm in agreement with it, minimum step code 3, but I think we should also have fire smart or fire resistant added to that. Thank you.
Okay. Member Hogan?
Did you go to Jade already?
Yeah, did it quite a while ago.
Okay.
Jade, I did you, did I not?
Pardon?
I'm sure I did, I got it checked off here. Member Baxter, did I poll you? I think so.
Yeah, you did. I was just
I
typing in
thought
the
so.
chat to agree with what Melissa said about Fire Smart.
Okay. Member Hogan, how do you feel on number 1?
I would agree with that, and then that we have more wording around fire resistant material and stuff.
So everyone was in favor, so that one will go, sorry.
Ron Matusi has his hand raised, as well as Joshua Lightfoot.
Okay. I'll go to member Lightfoot first.
I just wanted to point out that there are chapters within the building bylaw that do talk about fire resistance. And there are other sections that still may need further review, but this is a good step forward.
Thank you. Mr. Matusi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to assure the members, yeah, there are fire resistant standards in the current bylaw, and we were offered help by the Institute of Catastrophic Loss Reduction, who really specialize in looking at buildings and how to survive in a variety of disasters. And they've looked at the draft bylaw as well and have come back literally just today with some changes that really look at some of the fire resistance side of it and translate some of the European standards into Canadian standards, which I think are helpful if we're going to expect Canadian builders to build to a different standard. They need to do it with Canadian products and Canadian standards. So as soon as that, it's just a draft, like I said, I just got it, but I'll be happy to share that at some point in time with the committee so that they can see their recommendations as well.
Thank you. Mr. Dickinson, have we missed anything on this one?
No, I think we're going in the right direction on the energy efficiency side. As I said earlier, it's achievable and it's financially not going to be too big an encumbrance, if any. And no, I don't have anything more to add than that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Moving on to number 5.2, number 2. That reference to a district energy system and building bylaw 750 be deleted. Member Baxter.
Yes.
Would you like me to record the votes?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
Sorry, I was tied up there a second, Madam Baxter. Can you repeat what you said, please?
I just said yes because you called on me.
Okay. Thank you. Member Getty?
Yeah, I'm not for it. I think there's a couple of things that need to be deleted out of that bylaw, but that one for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Harrison?
Yes, delete it.
Member Hogan? Member Hogan?
Sorry, I wasn't on mute. I would be in favor of deleting it.
You. Member Lightfoot?
I'm in agreement with the statement that it be deleted.
Member McGuire?
Please delete it.
Member McCann?
Thank you. I would just change it to say that all references to a district energy system, because it is referenced several times throughout the bylaw. So that I was concerned that we make sure that all references to a district energy system be deleted. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Michelle?
Yes, I'm for deleting it. And I just wanted to say that I know we're just voting on this as a committee, but there are plenty of residents in the area that want it deleted as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Taylor?
I am for deletion as well.
Thank you. Mr. Dickinson, anything you'd like to add to that? Make sure we've got it all covered?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I had a little trouble with my mic there. No, nothing to add. It's a big project, and deleting it certainly won't slow things down, that's for sure. So as far as an opinion about how it would actually function, it's complex and costly and to run and to install. So there's a bunch of implications there. So I don't have anything else to add. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your words. Number 3, 523. That building bylaw 750 be reviewed to remove references that do not apply to the village of Lytton proper. For example, reference to gas, sewer, drainage, and other items not pertaining to the village of Lytton. Member McGuire, can I put the word natural gas in there so we don't get rid of our service stations?
Of course you can.
Thank you. For the vote.
I thought we do have sewer though.
I think the reference was to storm water removal from properties, which hasn't been in our municipality.
So you just hang on, we'll just get through the voting aspect of it. You can ask the question that time, and Mr. Dickinson will be able to answer, or whoever else can. Thank you.
And member Gessie has her hand raised as well.
I don't think it's a question, Ian.
What's the question?
Ian, it's Sheila. I don't think that what Jess just said is a question. I think what she's saying is the sewer drainage actually has other wording. It's not the word drainage.
Okay. So bear with me, Sheila, okay? So when we're talking about sewer drainage, what is exactly, because I gotta carry this to council, I don't want, they're gonna.
Exactly. It just would. Yeah.
Go ahead,
so
please.
maybe Jess could just repeat what she said.
I believe that the reference I cited was stormwater drainage, which hasn't been something that we've done.
So, sorry, bear with me, because I want to make sure I get this right for a good vote. We want the word sewer taken out and storm water drainage in?
That's correct.
Correct.
So I thought we did I thought we had our storm drainage downtown.
It refers to, in the bylaw, it refers to stormwater drainage from private properties to the main storm drains. Yeah.
Okay. Slower, so I can write that, okay, please? Just cross out sewer drainage altogether. Just repeat what you said about the private property, please.
There's a reference in the bylaw to removing storm water from the private property to the main storm drains, and that's not a system we've ever had established.
Okay, just a second.
It's so dry, it just soaks in here most times.
Good. Continuing on, and the other items not pertaining to the village of Lytton. So we'll start with.
And Ron Dickinson has his hand. Ron Dickinson has.
Oh, Mr. Dickinson, sorry, I can't see from this far away, and Madam Recovery Manager is kind enough to be sitting far enough away, she doesn't have to give me a smack. Please, you got the floor.
Okay, well, I just wanted to add, you're on the right track with the storm drainage. That's really what that issue was about. And on top of that, the subdivision bylaw addresses the fact that lots have to be graded in such a way that the drainage runs to the road or to another appropriate drainage thing, like off the end of the back of the property or some other place. But it's controlled through that process, and there's eliminating it from the building bylaw is a good idea because it's already addressed otherwise, and there's no need to address it in the building bylaw.
Thank you very much.
And member Gessie has her hand raised as well.
Thank you. Member Gessie? Member Gessie?
Okay, I have a query about deleting items from this bylaw, which would be the fact that I have, there's a couple more that I'm concerned about. So I presume there'll be further discussion on these deleting items, or is that something people want to do?
Okay. Mr. Matucci, can you come back on and probably explain the process of the bylaw, the 4 different readings, and we go back and forth forever? So the people, the members of this committee understand that once one thing goes in, it's not a done deal?
Right, I just wonder about when the next reading will be even, like, do we have time to have further discussion, and so we can have a more complete presentation when we take it to council?
Explain the bylaw process out.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that, you know, the bylaw really going through is you know, there's no set time period. You know, council can receive input, and I think this is what this is. This is input from a committee they've created to review the bylaw and provide recommendations. You know, my guess is the next part would be to sit down with Ron Dickinson and council and take these recommendations and others, and, you know, feedback from I just mentioned ICLR on the you know, fire resistance. There may be other things that we'll look and change, but they all would be considered input to go back to council, and at some point the bylaw would be redrafted. You know, at that point in time, I would recommend to council that they have that bylaw once again be put out into the community for comment. But ultimately, the building bylaw, unlike zoning or the official community plan, which requires a public hearing, there's really no requirement for a public hearing per se with the bylaw. I think it's good practice. I think you know, once the next version is complete, if that is the version that council is happy with, then I would recommend that then go out for public input as well. So you know, that's really the only process. I mean, you know, having a community group like this looking at a building bylaw is pretty unusual, but, you know, again, under the circumstance, having the whole village you know, have to be rebuilt is pretty unusual too. Normally when a city redoes its building bylaw, usually the only people that input, although it's open to the public, are members of the building trades or the development industry. You know, we usually comment on some of the more technical aspects. So there isn't a set pattern. There's usually public input, but there's no need for a public hearing. My recommendation, as I said, would be to take this input, work with the technical people who advise council, redraft the bylaw with the input. Council will decide what goes and what stays. And then to take that information and share it with the public, and then council will make the final decision.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy, appreciate it. So we're number 3. I'm going to read it again because I've had a couple of changes in it, and please correct me if I don't have it right. That building bylaw 750 be reviewed to remove references that do not apply to the village of Lytton proper. For example, reference to natural gas, to storm water from private property to storm drain and other items not pertaining to the village of Lytton. Not seeing 35 hands in the air, I guess we can vote on this one. So we're starting with Member Harrison.
I vote for it, yes.
Thank you. Member Hogan?
I'm okay with it.
Thank you. Member Lightfoot?
I agree.
Member McGuire?
I agree.
You're breaking up.
We couldn't hear.
I agree.
Thank you. Member McCann?
Fine with me, thank you.
Member Michelle?
I agree.
Member Taylor?
I agree as well.
Member Baxter?
I agree.
Member Getsy?
I agree, but I'll be writing some more that I want to add to it for later. Thank
Certainly. Thank you. So that comes to the end of those three, and thank you very much for the submission. There's one thing that I just picked up over the weekend that I think I should share with you. And it came from two different residents who I guess I know. And in their insurance policy, there is a bylaw clause. And the bylaw clause in one says that if there's any changes to a bylaw after the event, then the insurer is responsible for paying for that. The two policies that I read had $35,000 extra coverage for that. So whilst you're talking to our residents, get them please to check their insurance policy, because it's important, and I'm talking as myself as a counselor, it's important that council knows, because we don't want to put through a bylaw that's going to cost people a lot of money out of their own pocket. So please pass that on. Mr. Dickinson, can you add anything to that?
Yeah, and again, it's not my area of expertise, Mr. Chairman, but I've bumped into it many times when there's been house fires, just one-offs, nothing like this. But generally, the bylaw provision is that it does not apply to changes made after the event. So if you have a parcel of land that isn't in compliance with the current regulations and you lose your home, the bylaw, the insurance policy would cover changes that are required by the regulations in place when the home was lost. It would not cover the costs if the bylaws change between the time of the loss and the time of the reconstruction. That would be at the homeowner's expense.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we're moving on to numbers. Sorry, we got a hand up.
Ms. Lightfoot.
Member Lightfoot.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. In regards to that last bit of information, I'm going to put forward, I'll write it to you, but I'm going to put forward a notice of motion that at the next committee meeting, we encourage the village of Lytton to create an incentive program that helps people rebuild to the higher standard that the village is hoping and expecting to see.
Thank you very much. Would you, and I asked you this, would you like to chair a little subcommittee to look out for that and get it done and into me?
No, I don't need a subcommittee. No, that's good. Thank
You'll
you.
do it yourself?
I'll bring it back to this committee. I think we have enough intelligence on our committee
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to number 6, correspondence. I'm going to address a piece of correspondence from Ms. Thorpe. First, I want to give some background, if I may. Once the fire first went through here for a month or so, everybody complained that there was no communication between people, no communication from the village, etc. I had a big concern in this town is I personally did not know if everybody had been accounted for. And that upset me because people were all over the place. So various staff under this council tried to get a list of people and they're about 60–65%. I'm still worried about the 40% of people. So what I asked at that meeting was for people to reach out to other people they knew and for them to send their telephone number, best time of day to get a hold of me, their name, address was, and their email address. And I guess Member Harrison was the only one to send that out and took quite a bit of flack for it. I say this today to you. I say this. I can give you some names that nobody knows how to get a hold of them. Okay, and they are members and residents of our community, our town, and they have to be looked after. That's part of the responsibility that we have taken on. And I want to do that. I like to talk to people on the phone. I find emails very cold. So that was the meaning behind what I asked. I also asked at the first meeting I chaired for all the committee's telephone numbers, and I got none. I have member Lightfoot and I have member Hogan from before. Because we have little things like, poof, electricity went out, no way of contacting people. I couldn't get a hold of any, I don't know your phone number. Okay, so the member Harrison was kind enough to send this out. And Ms. Thorpe phoned me, I believe it was a phone or whatever. I've known her for years and I consider her a good friend, and asked me if it was for the surrounding area. And I said, no, it was aimed at the residents of Lytton. And the reason, and some people take this the wrong way, but the reason is this committee only has authorization and jurisdiction within the municipal boundaries. I have got no, I can't recommend to council, and council cannot, okay, do anything outside of our boundaries. So I wanted to get that because I wanted to talk to people. When I found out this thing about the 25%, I was shocked, absolutely shocked. So we put in our building bylaw, we have to have 3 chimneys. All of a sudden, somebody comes to me and says, I have to spend an extra $10,000. They'd only pay for one. And we've got to get a hold of our people, okay? And we've got to get together a list and keep chit-chatting to them. So I ask you this once again, please get it out to them and get their contacts and get them into me. I use my business. I don't know how to use an iPad. I'm sorry. I wouldn't be even here with you today if it wasn't for Madam Recovery Manager because I don't know how to operate these things. And so I'm on my business one. It's going day and night. I don't look at the one I have from the village. I look at it every once in a while. So let's get together and work together for the people that we're there to serve. Okay, and for Ms. Thorpe, I did not mean to exclude anybody. Please phone me. I talk to a lot of people around the country. I've got lots of friends everywhere, and I do not mind. What I was after was contact with the people so I can talk to them about the building bylaw. So if it was misconstrued, I do apologize to you. Anyway.
I do note a couple members have their hands raised. The first to raise their hand was Member Taylor.
Member Taylor.
Sorry, that was a type. I don't know what it just did it on its own. I couldn't get rid of it. Sorry.
Member Lightfoot.
Member Lightfoot?
Thank you. So I've had a couple of responses from people that say, I've already responded to 2 more surveys. I don't want to respond to another one. And a big issue that people are citing is that it's not being sent to a Village of Lytton address, but to a private individual's address. And I myself am uncomfortable with that. So I would suggest perhaps you need to use lytton.ca, and perhaps we would get better response if the citizens understood why we want this information. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And just in answer to that, some of the surveys that were done, they cannot share that private information. Okay, just to let you know, there's no way I can get access to it. I look at a few people I've been trying to get a hold of, and I had to go through other means to get their number. As you also, all people all know, I chair the Lytton Age Seniors Housing Society, and I had a couple of people there I lost contact with. And I still haven't had contact with one of them. So, and it bothers me when I don't. So our job is to keep the people abreast of what is going on, okay? And to find out their feelings and what they do. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna carry their wishes to the council.
If I may add.
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, I've mentioned this to a couple of people on our committee, but I'm not sure that the whole committee is aware that after your letter went out and it was circulated by Ollie, Allison approached several of us to help her review the 811 residents of Lytton. And Allison hasn't been here, so she doesn't know where streets and things are. So after a couple of afternoons of trying to give her a lowdown on what the community streets were and such, I think that quite a bit of work was done and there is a more complete list now. Allison, could you make comments so that everyone's aware that this activity has happened and at what stage it is presently?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So if I may, so we understood that there were some concerns as a result of the initial approach that was taken. So I had access to a number of lists of residents. And I also have the consent forms that were signed by each of those respondents that allows us to compile these into an overall list. So those lists were those compiled by the contractors. That includes also the property tax list, the tax register, essentially, as well as the ESS list, which was approximately 800 people who indicated that they lived in Lytton at the time of the fire. So with the help of a number of volunteers from the community, we have been going through this complete list and identifying not only who was a property owner, we have that from the property tax register. We've also, this group has helped to identify who was a resident of Lytton at the time of the fire and who, you know, whether that be a property owner or a renter, it doesn't matter. So we have somewhat of a complete list now. What we are missing in some cases are email addresses. I understand certainly that not everybody has emails. So I'm but you know, where we don't have an email, we may have a phone number or vice versa, that sort of thing. So I'm happy to say that, you know, thanks to the really incredible efforts of the group that has helped to compile this list, we really have, I think, a more thorough understanding of who was a resident at the time of the village, as Councillor Hay referred to, who was a resident within the municipal boundary of Lytton at the time of the fire, who out of that list is a property owner, but not necessarily a resident, and who is a renter within the municipal boundary of Lytton. So I think we're getting closer to having a complete list in place that will also go, will help to, you know, will help us in our ongoing sort of commitment to making sure we communicate with the residents of Lytton. Does that answer the question?
Thank you, Allison. I think it came together fairly quickly with the help of a couple of people, and it should help facilitate debris removal with, I believe you were going to put it in 2 formats, one with addresses, and
right.
maybe, and it should help with interim housing if we know, now that we've heard today, it's going to take so long, it's probably even more important. It may help identify those people that are needing lodging in the next year. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. I think it's very important to have that, you know, as Councillor Hay refers to, that sort of comprehensive list that we can refer to and have updated contact information and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm very happy that we have that, the beginnings of that in place. And thanks so much to those volunteers that helped to put it together.
Member Lightfoot, your question answered?
Yes, it is. And I just want to say it'll be an ongoing process, because even now we know people are moving and getting new phones and whatever. So it'll be a living document, I believe is what they call those things, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Hay. Yeah.
No problem.
And
Member McCann?
So I was going to say something.
Sorry, can you hang on a minute? I've got Member McCann on the floor.
Oh, sorry. Yep, go ahead.
No problem, I'll get right back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Hay, I just had one little issue that I want to just make sure I'm clear on understanding, because I got your message by email after the last meeting with your, you called it a questionnaire or something. And I emailed you back with my concerns and questions I had about that, but you never did answer me back. And so am I correct now in understanding you to say that you're not comfortable with email or something? Is that why I never got an answer back from you? Or you always prefer a phone call? Or I'm getting confused about how to contact you, and I'm more comfortable with email. So now I'm getting confused. Can you clarify that, please?
I certainly can. I will check my computer when I go home to see if I got your message, okay? I didn't see it. The reason that I'm concerned about physical contact or talking to people on the telephone, I received 1 phone call since the fire. 1. Okay, I can probably name a few people off that haven't got any yet. And those people are equal to all of us. They are residents of this town. And some of them feel that they are being isolated, that nobody cares where they are, where they're going. And God bless you for putting the list together. I didn't know that was being done, but I think that we as a committee, we should divide this list up, and each of us have 15 pen pals out there that we keep a good eye on. We get to know them, we get to know what they need, what they want, and we can start looking after them through the council. Anyway, that's all I have to do. Sorry, Member Harrison, you had your hand up.
Yes, I would just like to say a few words since you brought my name into the conversation. So yes, in putting that email out there, I did receive a lot of flack. Some of it was personally directed, which is unfortunate. And also, I did not know about this committee being put together by Allison. So in the future, when something like this happens, this is what I'm trying to say is I'm living in Alberta. I feel completely out of the loop here. It seems like I wasn't consulted as being one of those volunteers, even though I live in the village of Lytton, and I certainly could have helped with that list. I have put my name forth in the past to be a volunteer for the administration, but I just would like somebody to tell me why I didn't matter in all this and why I took all the flack and why I was the only one who put the message out there, because it made me feel like a fool. And that's not what I'm on this committee for.
If I may speak to that, Ollie, I don't believe you look like a
fool.
Thank you. I don't believe you look like a fool, and I don't, and this random little committee came together quite quickly, I believe, after you had sent it out, and there were other people that had similar negative experiences from that that email or whatever it was. So no, there was one list that had been produced by community members a while ago that was a good basis of what we went forward with, and it wasn't that you weren't valuable, as any other member on this committee is valuable, but not even everyone in our little group was on this committee. It was just people that were in town that had compiled that information already. So please don't take offense, and we'll be sure to hook you up to some task in the future, I'm sure. Sorry.
Thank you. Let me just close this part of it off with, I had good intentions. I do apologize to the people, especially to Trish, if we misunderstood what I was saying. And let's put this sort of stuff behind us. We haven't got time for this little pittance. And let's get a list of people together, get it divided up and start taking care of our people, and let's start moving on. Okay? So having done all that good stuff, I just need oh, I'm sorry, I have to break tradition here, if I may, and I see MLA Taggart is here. Jackie, would you like to address the committee?
I would just, not a problem. Thank you for the work you're doing. And if there is anything that we can assist with, you know that Lori and I are as close as an email or a phone. So I know that there's lots going on. There's a lot of things that need to go on. And this committee is an incredibly important committee to the work that's going to be done. So we're here to assist in any way. We don't want to interfere, but we want you to know that we're here to support any way we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Ian and Sheila, you missed 5.3.
5.3.
You missed 5.3.
What was 5.3?
The correspondence from Ms. Thorpe.
I just did that.
No, it was the Red Cross. Jade wanted to speak to the Red Cross.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive. Member Baxter, you have the floor.
Hi, no worries. Yeah, last time we met, I brought up the fact that there was some confusion and lack of support from the Red Cross to renters in the village of Lytton. And I received the email from you, Allison, explaining some clarification around leases, which was helpful. I just wasn't able to respond because we had some really hectic deliveries with the relief centers. But I just wanted to follow up with some of the things I've heard from Village of Lytton renters. And it is that continually they haven't been contacted by the Red Cross. And furthermore, they've been given just horrible advice. Like a renter was told to go speak with their band and that the Red Cross could not help them. I'm not quite sure what kind of comprehensive understanding of the area the Red Cross has, in the sense that they may be assuming that this renter is a part of LFN when they're a part of a different band. So I'm just concerned that the renters are still falling through the cracks of support. And very specifically the young Indigenous renters in town as they kind of get passed back and forth between agencies. So I don't know if things have gotten any better, but the issue that these young renters were facing didn't have to do necessarily with having official leases. So yeah, I did actually receive a phone call from the Red Cross during this meeting. They're gonna call me tomorrow. So I might have more information then, but I just wanted to follow up with, it seems like renters are still struggling to get support from the Red Cross. And these are both local renters who stayed in the area and renters who are displaced out of the area. So yeah, that was my only update. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Member Baxter. I just want to respond by saying that I spoke actually to Tammy Germain, who is the person who is from the Red Cross and at the Resiliency Center. She's going to be there again, along with myself, actually, the week of January 17th. So I look forward to meeting many of you then. But specifically, we did talk about how some of the case managers through the Red Cross aren't necessarily familiar with the situation of renters and some of the Indigenous communities around Lytton, and how that was a concern that she actually identified to me. And she's going to be taking some action and doing a couple like seminars and things to really educate the case management team about who are the local Indigenous communities and giving them more situational awareness. I would love your input on that. So I'm sure so would Tammy. I can only speak in a limited way on behalf of the Red Cross, of course, but please continue to let me know of anyone that you know of that might be falling through the cracks, and we want to be sure that we address that.
Member Baxter, how many people are you looking after, if I may ask? Renters?
I've just been informally checking in with about 3 or 4 other renters, myself included, but I'm not necessarily speaking on my own personal experience. So that's what I would say, about 3 or 4. I would like to, and I don't know if this would have to do with the list that you were just previously speaking about, Allison. I think it would be good to have a stronger focus on what the renters are experiencing, and if there's any way I could help with that, that would be great.
Absolutely.
It's just been very busy with the relief centers as well. So yeah.
The reason I asked the question, Member Baxter, is if you're around 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe we can get what they can give you. One caseworker can be familiar. One person gets to know it and gets to know all the people, and that way everybody's going to be told the same thing. And that might be a thing to work with when Madam Recovery Manager is out in Lytton. I'm sure she would love your company down there to talk to the Red Cross. And maybe the two of you can hook up a timing to meet that lady and see if you can work something out.
That would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I can get in touch with you about that.
Super, thank you, and thank you for the work you're doing with them.
Of
Next
course,
meeting
thank you.
we've got is January the 19th, 2022, and before I call the adjournment, thank you, Member McGuire, for bringing that to my attention. I'm an old man, and sometimes I need young ladies around like you that have good memories. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Everybody wants to stay.
I'll make the motion.
A motion to adjourn made by Mr. Taylor. Thank you, everybody. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.